Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this unique unit deep dive, we're going to be looking at the WoO's unique barracks unit, the Jian Swordsmen. This unit is already building a pretty good reputation for itself across the fanbase, and is among the new Shock Infantry class, alongside Fire Lancers and Eagles, with the added unique twist of transforming as it takes damage from a shielded into a non-shielded version. The description says they're exceptionally strong against archery units, and like all Shock Infantry, is weak against the Swordsman line, both of which are most definitely the case, though we'll also check out the unit in a variety of situations, as well as how the whole two versions of the unit play out. To start simply, the most obvious comparisons are to the Longsword and the Eagle Warrior at the barracks. Jian Swordsmen are unlocked at the beginning of Castle Age, so this is the earliest chance you'll see them. In terms of cost, they're a little more expensive than these other two, having the same 50 gold of an Eagle, but closer to the food of a Longsword. When it comes to their stats, things get a little more complicated. The first version with the shield has decent HP and attack, but way more armor than these other two, with that being its main identifying feature. It does cost a little more, but 3 melee and 5 pierce armor by default is no joke, and we'll have all infantry armor upgrades on top of this as well. Once their health drops below 45 out of 70 though, they switch into an unshielded version and pull out their big orange sword, gaining +3 attack but losing 3 of each type of armor. They also speed up by 10%, which you could interpret as helping to chase things down, but I actually think is even more useful for running away. One thing to keep in mind throughout all of this is that we'll have a bonus for their infantry to heal 1 HP every 3 seconds in Castle Age, and they'll even revert to their shielded version once they heal back up to at least 45 HP. If that wasn't strange enough, they start differentiating themselves even more as we look at bonus damage, where they have +4 against archers, while longswords are anti-eagle and anti-shock infantry, while the Eagle Warrior goes in a totally different direction, of being anti-monk, anti-cavalry, and anti-siege. In fact, maybe this isn't the right comparison at all, and instead a closer match is with the Goss Huskarl and Hindustani's Ghulam. While the Jian Swordsman is still more expensive than either, the three have some undeniable similarities when it comes to high pierce armor, a bit faster speed, and most notably, their shared bonus damage against archers of all types. On the other side, in terms of bonus damage they receive, using them against infantry, they're in for a bit of a shock. That is, anti-shock infantry bonus damage. Most unique infantry units have a bit of this, and especially the longsword has a lot of it. Most units with this bonus also get more of it when they upgrade to their elite versions in Imperial Age, so it's a problem that actually gets worse for the Jian Swordsmen, not better in the late game. They also have a bit longer training time at 27 seconds each, compared to 21 and 22 seconds for the Spear and Swordsman line, which I assume is meant to stall them a bit in early Castle Age in particular, just to give archer civs a chance to adjust and tech into a response. Now though, let's see this in action when it all comes together, where I think the reason for its good reputation will become immediately clear, if it wasn't already. To start with Crossbows, we'll give everyone here full Castle Age upgrades, though ignore the effects of healing just for the moment. Here, Swordsmen take 15 shots, growing to 20 with Gambazins, Eagle Warriors improve on that to 28, Ghulams slightly extend that to 30, and Huskarls with or without armor take 60 arrows. Jian Swordsmen, as always, are a little more complicated. Their first shielded form takes 26 arrows until it drops to 44 HP, after which they start taking 3 damage per arrow, which adds up to 41 in total. Again, this is pretending they can't heal, but the point is even without that bonus, they're already doing fairly well. That 41 is a little tricky to wrap your head around, as for most units that would mean 20 or 21 shots would leave them at half health, but in this case, after 21 arrows, it's still at 70% HP. In a funny way, against archers, that means at 70% HP, it's half defeated, illustrating how its HP goes down slowly at first and then all at once. If instead we add in their healing ability, they take 78 shots from a single crossbow with thumb ring, which is even more than a Huskarl, as it's continually offsetting that incoming damage. That leaves us with a range of 41 arrows in the worst case of being one shot, but can in theory have up to 2 or more times that durability, depending on how many units are targeting them and if you ever pull them back to heal. It also means there's an extra incentive for enemies to focus fire them down one at a time, particularly once their shield is down and each shot is doing effectively triple damage. What all this translates to is that with balanced resources, even with stop micro, it's almost impossible to beat Jian Swordsmen using crossbows. The shielded version is technically already faster than crossbowmen, and speeds up even more when their HP drops, while the fact they're continually healing throughout can really add up. To put this into perspective, a similar balanced fight against Huskarls in Castle Age leads to basically the same result, with 48% instead of 44% HP left over after a similar test. On the other hand, Ghulams are actually a little better, as their pass-through damage and faster speed give it a little extra, though Eagle Warriors end up doing the worst out of this group, so clearly Jian Swordsmen are keeping up with some pretty anti-archer company. Obviously then, things are going to be even worse for Skirmishers. Here we have another variety of units, but in this case, even without healing, Jian Swordsmen take the most javelins, and with healing included, is functionally impervious to a single elite skirmisher, since it heals as fast as it takes damage. Even dropping below 45 HP, they still take just 1 damage if they have castle upgrades, while also dealing anti-archer bonus damage in return. Combined with their strength against crossbows, they're obviously an effective unit in early Castle Age at shutting down civilizations that went heavily into archer range units during feudal. They're even functionally anti-elephant archer as well, as they just heal too fast and move quickly enough to keep up while dealing bonus damage with each attack. Broadening our scope, they're even pretty solid in a pinch against weak infantry. Against pikemen, for example, with all upgrades, they can fully heal away all incoming damage, and we need to add a bonus to the pikemen like the Japanese faster attack just to get anything through. With balanced total resources against Japanese pikemen, they end up with a cool 95% of their HP left. Wait, make that 96. You know what, let's just call it 100. Even starting them off at half health with 35 HP, where they take 4 damage instead of 1 per attack, they still win, though their losses are a little more substantial. If nothing else, this highlights how it can pay off to let them heal between fights, as that higher starting armor really changes the unit's dynamic against low attack units, and archers especially for the better. As they start to go up against stronger melee units though, it becomes obvious they're not really meant for this. Against a knight one-on-one, the shielded mode lasts 4 hits, taking 26 damage and dealing 18 with that first phase. The second phase, they then take 5 more hits from the knight, receiving 44 damage, but the knight loses 45, so things actually pick up in the second half, with the knight ending in total at about half strength. What I find interesting about this is against archers, it was the initial shielded mode doing most of the heavy lifting, and once you hit the unshielded mode, you want to get them out of that situation to heal, because they're suddenly much less effective. Against knights, exchanging 3 armor for 3 more attack is a fair or even advantageous swap. Even still, with balanced resources, knights win overall though, meaning I don't think Jian Swordsmen are an uncounterable unit, and knights, especially with the basic upgrades, do a pretty decent job against them. The really dangerous counter though is the Longswordsmen, with plus 5 bonus damage. Balancing equal resources, the Longswords end with 65% of their HP left, and even if we mismatch their upgrades, giving plus 2 attack and armor to the Jian Swordsmen and no blacksmith upgrades to the Longswords, it's still incredibly one-sided. Interestingly, the longsword upgrade itself is very important to this dynamic, as a men-at-arm has so much worse stats and only plus 1 extra bonus damage that it alone isn't good enough. You need the longsword upgrade, after which the Jian Swordsman is in quite a bit of trouble. That said, I don't want to make it sound like the longsword is a super easy transition if you've gone heavily into archery range units and suddenly see Jian Swordsmen. Longswords and knights can deal with them, but if you're not set up to make those things already, it can be rough. And while you might say the same thing about Huskarls, at least in that case, you have a bit of time to prepare, as they need to build a castle first, whereas Jian Swordsmen can be made straight out of a barracks the moment you hit Castle Age. Wu also have their own self-healing longswords to counteract any civilizations making that same unit, so it's a little trickier to counter the Jian Swordsmen in early Castle Age than it initially sounds. Like other infantry, the unit is also pretty good against buildings, and while it's a little worse than the longsword, 5 of them with arson, for example, roughly match a battering ram. A quick correction on the last video, by the way, is that it turns out Wu don't have siege ram, as their tech tree says. I had thought they did, and said that in the Fire Archer video, but there's just a bug that gives the Wu siege ram if you start a game in post-Imperial. Personally, I kinda like that they just have the first level of ram as a civ design choice, as it pushes you more into their infantry, fire archers, and the traction trebuchet, encouraging players to explore their more unconventional anti-building options rather than just make rams in Imperial. Back to Jian Swordsmen though, so far we've just been looking at Castle Age, where they end up being a very strong response to mass archers and skirmishers, more than making up for the Wu's below average skirmisher line. They apply decent pressure to buildings, tank arrows fairly well even from town centers, and essentially function like the Huskarl for Goths, sacrificing a bit of that unit's speed for self-healing and a bit higher cost. On the other hand, the quirky aspect of having two forms are actually kind of hard to intentionally play around, as the versions will be often mixed together throughout the fight, but the initial shielded version, as we've seen, is very tanky to arrows and attacks from weak units. Now though, let's take a quick look at what changes in the Imperial Age, where I'd argue they start to pass their best before date. First off, there's no elite upgrade, and instead you have two passive bonuses kicking in. The first gives them an automatic +2 attack, and the other is their HP healing rate jumps from 20 to 30 per minute. You also have the Infantry Blacksmith tech supplying, and indirectly their slower creation speed is helped by the fact that multiple barracks become easier to afford in the late game, also paying you 65 food each from a bonus, plus you get conscription. So the unit is objectively getting stronger and easier to make, though I would still argue don't end up feeling quite as dominant. To start with archers, they take a bit fewer shots all at once than they did in Castle Age, though are still very respectable, at least matching the total shots needed for the Wu's version of the Paladin. If we throw in healing, their shielded version takes 170 shots for a single Arbalester to work through, but then just 15 more to finish it off. So we really see the effect of this shield coupled with healing being a major selling feature and hard to break through, even if their HP doesn't increase in Imperial. Obviously, they're great against skirmishers as well, and essentially can't be beaten except with focus fire from a very large group, just like Arbalesters. Their main threat from the archery range is just the hand cannoneer, which has both high attack and such a large bonus they can actually 4-shot a Jian Swordsman. More than any other unit, it kind of feels like Jian Swordsmen are either very good against a unit or very bad, with not that many things falling in between. So far, they seem solid though, and the main reason I suggested they don't hold up as well in Imperial can be summarized by a couple of melee examples. The first is Japanese halberdiers, where remember pikemen were basically completely ineffective, whereas in Imperial Age they can nearly get the Jian Swordsman in the same test down to half health. The gold cost also feels a little more important here, and like a bigger strike against them. They also can't beat Hussars with similar total resources, meaning they don't really feel that anti-trash role that a lot of unique infantry units tend to. Against even cavaliers, they perform worse than they did against knights in Castle Age, in this case only bringing them down to half health, and they'll only do worse from there against paladins or even good cavalier civilizations. Of course, the swordsman line is just a total stomp, and it's not just that balanced resources against champions is so one-sided, but even that Persian longswords can beat fully upgraded Jian swordsmen. For that reason, while I think the anti-archer aspect is still present in Imperial Age, against everything else they feel much less like a generalist unit and more like the anti-archer and skirmisher piece of a more developed army composition, though to be clear, it can still do that anti-archer role extremely effectively. To its credit, within the Wu's barracks overall, I actually find it's by far the largest beneficiary of their HP regeneration, simply because their high armor in combination with that makes them situationally incredibly resilient. By the way, if you're looking for your own patching up of small scrapes and bruises, or even the odd arrow or pike stab, you'll definitely want to check out my new Jian Swordsman inspired first aid supply store, Spirit of the Gods. It has a great website I made in minutes thanks to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a great-looking website, engage with your audience, and then sell anything from products to content to time all in one place. Using either their pre-made templates or Squarespace's AI-enhanced website builder, you can create a fully customized website to suit your needs. It's perfect for building an online presence for a physical business or starting an online store using their built-in tools for inventory and shipping, with plenty of analytics to give you insight about your website's traffic and sales. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/spiritofthelaw to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So that was a closer look at the Jian Swordsmen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.